Make sure you go to LFR Family and ask me about the Bang Bang Tea. We're about to check out a man who was born in 1846, and he's talking about the 60s and fighting in the Civil War. I think it's necessary that we check this out because many people don't know from the mouths of those people who were there, and that's why they really don't give much credence to the things that they should. Because if anybody's getting a raw deal, nowadays, it's definitely veterans. If y'all have any information out there or any videos I should check out to get me more familiar with veterans, make sure y'all just send me those videos.
I was born on the 17th day of January, 1846. I go back as far as way along in the early 50s. My first recollection of public living, and especially political living, as I may call it, was when I learned as a boy of 9 or 10 that my home was in the state of Virginia. I didn't know about states before that time. Then time passed pretty rapidly because I was attending high school, and I remember distinctly the occasion when John Brown, the poor man, sought freedom for the slaves. Then came up the great struggle when the Republican Party had become a power in the land. In 1860, Mr. Lincoln was elected, as you know, and I remember that there was a good deal of excitement in my section. Now, I was attending school, as I said, and when in the spring of 61, when news came that war was actually declared. In fact, it had been coming when South Carolina, as we heard, seceded from the Union. Well, wonder now what Mr. Lincoln will do when he is seated on the presidential chair. Well, there was a variety of feeling about it, even among our 75 or 100 young men, boys, at school. But right at once, when war was declared, about half of our pupils, young men over 18, quit school, joined companies of infantry, cavalry, and in their homes, in surrounding counties, and in that vicinity. I wanted to go too, but my father said, "Now, son, you're too young." I was just 15, just a little past.
Imagine that at a time, there was a time, an actual time in our history where you were 15 years old and you wanted to go fight for the country. Think about that. He said, I wanted to go. So that has to say something about the type of person he was. Like the belief and the love that he had for country at that time. Now, anybody who is black that see this guy talking or that see his face and see that, oh, he's a vet and all this other stuff will automatically assume that he was one of the worst people, one of the people who were back there with millions of slaves and just been extremely demonstrative and everything. But when you listen to this is the reason why, with any content creators out there, I want to just say this is the reason why your voice is important, because what you're doing is you're providing a unique pair of eyes, people who gravitate toward you and your personality. Those people are going to learn something through your journey. So continue to do what you're doing. And yeah, I enjoy this type of content.
And if the war continues long enough, you may have an opportunity. Well, so I rested, and the war began, and I heard about it. And I heard that at the Battle of Williamsburg, some of my classmates fell in the battle there. Well, I grieved about that, because they were boys that I'd been brought up with. They were a little older than I, but I felt sorry that they were killed. Then, in 62, although General Lee had still a pretty good army, he began to need more men, naturally.
Hey, what's up, Mr. Whiskers, Katarina, Lisa Marie, Carnage the God, what's up, man? Jeff, what's up, Susie Card, Chris, Rod Father, how y'all doing? Real Dog Browner, yeah, man, Jimmy Soul, what's up, guys? Thank y'all for hanging out with me as usual. I appreciate it. Best auntie ever, hello.
Although the big battles, or the largest battles, had not come yet, but my neighbors around there, some of them who were over 45, kinsmen of mine, some of them, began to just get up a company of cavalry. And I, a boy of 16 and a half years old, joined the cavalry company, which afterwards was attached and counted with others among the 24th Virginia Cavalry. Now, for a long time then, from August 62 on until 64, great battles had been fought in there. We heard of the Battle of Gettysburg. And finally, our camp company was taken away from the Blackwater border, guarding that section of the country from the incursions of Federal soldiers who might cross the Blackwater River and the Huron and come over into Confederate territory. We were taken in the spring of 64, our regiment was, in the neighborhood of Petersburg. And while we were camped just north of Petersburg, General Grant began his invasion of that part of Virginia. We heard about it, and I remember very distinctly, one morning we heard that General Lee had crossed the James up north and was coming down the Turnpike Road in the direction of Petersburg, just near us. And the next morning, happening to look while I was on guard across the James River, there we saw long lines of blue of the infantry of the Army and the United States flags on the other side of the James, coming down to beyond the mouth of the Appomattox River that flows into the James, in order to cross on the pontoon bridges and thus begin the invasion of that part of Virginia and in the city of Petersburg. Thus, I was not with that part of the army. My regiment was moved up north of Virginia, of Richmond, north of Richmond, and thus we guarded that city for several months while General Lee and General Grant were struggling there near Petersburg.
You know, I would like to have a conversation with someone who was from back in those days about certain topics that most of y'all, you know how you're not supposed to discuss money a whole bunch of times, or not supposed to, but it becomes like a taboo subject. Don't nobody really want to talk about it in families and amongst friends and stuff like that, or even sex, to a point where, oh, you're not supposed to talk about that. That's like another taboo subject sometimes. And politics. Politics is also one of them things where you're not supposed to discuss it. You're not supposed to say if you're voting left or if you're voting right. You're not supposed to talk about those things. For some strange reason, I think it's ridiculous. Okay, that's just me. I think the only way we can fix anything is through conversation first. Okay, actions have to be a part of it as well. But conversation is what starts it all, because you need to understand what you're getting into before you move forward. So with that said, I would like to talk to like this guy, or a veteran from back in those days, with all their faculties, obviously, who can still remember those times and whatnot. And I would like to just see how they feel about race relations and how they feel about back then race relations, today race relations, and I would like their brutal, honest opinions. I don't give a damn if they was their families had slaves, or if they themselves had slaves, or if they was a part of certain cavalries that that might have done some bad things to African Americans or something like that. I would like to have those conversations and see exactly what was going through the minds of the people who ran civilization back in those days, because those things aren't usually spoken about. I don't really come across many conversations where they're talking about exactly what was the mindset of those days, those times. You know what I mean? And I want to talk about that. Some people are like, man, let's just move forward and not talk about that. Well, guess what? When it comes to any other history, like this type of history right here, we don't want people to forget about this. And the reason why you don't want people to forget about it is because when they die, history dies. And if they never told this story to someone, who then told this story to someone, who then told this story to someone, so forth and so on, then the story dies. History dies. And that's when history really becomes alive, because it becomes his story and her story. And it's not the right story, if that makes any sense.
While that was going on, there were some skirmishes, and one, small battle I was in. I was not in any of the larger battles, probably fortunately, maybe unfortunately. Well, General Ewell commanded the General Lee's corps near Richmond. And I remember we were called up one day and took the Derbytown Road and some mile or two, I don't know. We never counted distances or time.
Thank you, Chris. Chris said, if you don't know your history, then you're bound to repeat it. And that's one of the main reasons why. Thank you. See, you said it better than me. All right. Because that's another part of it too, right there. If you don't know, then you're not going to know if you're being put in the same traps and people are trying to revamp like those days, like slavery 3.0. Could you imagine with all the technology and everything which is happening, trafficking, human trafficking, and many other things are happening right now, which is right in our faces, and we can't do a damn thing about it. But you're absolutely right. If you don't know your history, then you're bound to repeat it, man.
In those days, we turned off from the road, Maiden Road, and went down a road through a wood. After a while, came to an opening, and there was a line of blue boys and with some artillery, and we charged them, and that's where I was struck the first and only time in my leg, which laid me up 2 months. I was sent home on furlough. Now, I want to bring in one or two little points there that might be of interest to some. We were around Richmond, my regiment was, all the time then, on doing little of nothing, while that war was still going on, and after a while, a Saturday evening, the first day of April, 1865. We were ordered, and by the way, in the meantime, about half of my regiment had lost their horses. The Confederate soldiers owned their own horses, and when they lost a horse, it was difficult at that stage to secure a substitute.
Wow. Y'all listen to what this man is saying. And this dude is sharp. He said April 1st of 1865, it was a Saturday. How in the world you remember all of that, man? Brain is sharp.
Anyhow, I lost mine. I've forgotten just now how. I don't believe it. I don't believe it was in battle, however, at that time. Now, orders came for a dismounted part, or demounted, I might say, of the regiment to fall in line and march. We stopped on the way and spent the night. That is Saturday night. The next day was a beautiful day, Sunday. We didn't know what was going on. We were within a mile of Richmond, and there was a turmoil there. And that day, as you all know, that day, the President Davis was attending his usual services at his church, St. Paul's Church. Right in the midst of the sermon, the front door opened, and a courier rushed in and went up to President Davis, handed him the paper. He opened it, and it was a dispatch from General Lee saying, Mr. President, I am so heavily pressed by the enemy that I'm compelled to abandon Petersburg. Mr. Davis arose and left, and the congregation broke up, and in a few minutes almost, there was pandemonium then in Richmond. We marched out of Richmond early the next morning, on the 3rd, and started in a southeasterly direction. We didn't know which way nor where we were going, but afterwards it showed that we were attempting, under General Ewell's command, to come in contact with General Lee, somewhere down southwest of Petersburg. Well, the Federals under General Sheridan overtook us, our command of about 3,000, in Amelia County, Virginia, and after fighting several hours, General Ewell surrendered us, and thus I became a captive. I went to prison along with this command, and we landed in Point Lookout, Maryland, down here. Now, comes up the question of what we Southern soldiers fought for. My friends, as a boy of 16 and a half years old, I didn't think about any abolition of slavery. My mind wasn't developed enough to take in what the politicians had in mind.
Y'all hear that right there? So he's explaining to y'all right now why he felt so compelled to fight. He said he wasn't aware of what the politicians were fighting for back and forth. He wasn't aware of what was going on in the government. 16 years old. His brain wasn't developed enough for him to be paying attention to those type of things.
And hence, there was no trouble as to the freedom of the slaves. The South did not fight for the preservation or extension of slavery.
The South did not fight for the they didn't fight for slavery to continue to go continue to move forward. Is what he just now said. The preservation of slavery. Hold on, let's listen to this again.
To the freedom of the slaves. The South did not fight for the preservation or extension of slavery.
The South did not fight for the preservation nor extension of slavery. Yeah. Lover of Jesus and humanity. I don't know. I felt like learning a bit, but I wanted to share with you all at the same time. I was asked by one of my loving, amazing supporters what prompted me to watch this video. And honestly, I just saw it up here and I said, you know what, this seems interesting. I want to learn about it. And I'm believing that if I'm just like the rest of the people in the world. And if I'm intrigued by this, then there might be one or two people who are intrigued by this. So hopefully they can learn something from it if they haven't seen it before.
My friend, it was a great curse on this country that we had slavery. And I thank God that I did not bring up my boys and girls under a system of slavery under which I was brought under.
You hear that? He thanked God that he didn't bring his kids up under that system.
What did you boys fight for then? Here's what great many people do not know. That as a young man that way, I couldn't understand it fully. But I look back now and see my part in it and saw what we struggled for. And that was for states' rights. For states' rights. And as many of you know, immediately after the war, the rights of the various states, well, especially in the South, were very much curtailed, if I may use that word. And since then, I have noticed you let things come up that encroach on the ordinary states' rights, which we have preserved, and we find that the North, the boys that wore the blue are with us in preservation of the states' rights.
Ask me about the Bang Bang tea.
Get that Bang Bang tea, y'all. It works. Trust me, it works.
Okay, so you've tried the Bang Bang tea before. What was your 100% honest opinion on it?
Okay, so the Bang Bang tea, I've never had any type of issue with my sex life. Like, we're young, we're still vibrant, even though I'm almost 40 years old. We still get it in. I've been married. I've been with my husband for over 20 years, so we still get it in. But when I say, I ain't gonna give my husband's real age, but he's in his 40s, right? That stamina that happened a couple of hours after we drank that tea, and I only drank half and I gave him half. That stamina happened, and you told me it was gonna be like half an hour. It took me about 2 hours, but when I say I was ready after about 2 hours, I was ready. Like, hold on, what you doing? You took your shower yet? You ready yet? Like, cause I'm ready, and I didn't understand why I was ready. I'm like, I'm ready, and it did exactly what you said it was gonna do.
Oh my God!
It did exactly what you said it was gonna do.
He fought for states' rights. That's what he fought for. That's what was important to him. States' rights, right? That he's smaller government. It seemed like they've been fighting for smaller government for a longer time, like a long time. Like, bruh, we just want our own rights, man. Can we have our own rights? And we're fighting for states' rights. And but some people don't want that. They're like, nope. One person says what everybody do. One person rules all. The president is the king, and the government is his army. And he get to say what everyone does. Shut up, big government. Boom, y'all do this. Shut up. He's saying he didn't want that. All right, so y'all let me know whatever y'all want me to know about this in the comments below. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside of the Patreon as well. Y'all have been amazing per usual. Love y'all, and yo, this new hat and this new hoodie that says create content, don't consume content. Shout out to Nick over at hatsforsale.com. I appreciate y'all. And if anybody else wanted to get a hoodie or t-shirt or a bucket hat or anything that we might have over there, LFR Family Apparel for the summer, go to hatsforsale.com and make sure you put in LFR10 if you want 10% off. All right, thank y'all, man. And go check out the website so you can ask me about the Bang Bang team. See you on the next video. Love y'all.